So it's 1 year of breaking lines, Gary. We've managed to get through 12 months, 41 episodes of the podcast, and here we are looking back at what's been a year of learning and development for us.
It's been a great year, hasn't it? It's been a strange... To say it's only been a year feels a little bit weird. I haven't bought you anything, Dave. I'm really, really sorry. I have to apologise for starters.
A brand new mic or something like that.
You don't need any more new equipment, mate. You bought enough. You bought enough to try and get this podcast. We'll just tell the listeners that Dave is the brains behind the technology in everything we do, both from a working perspective and also certainly from a podcast perspective. So Dave essentially edits and produces the whole thing, which I think is worthy of at least a shout out. So, but yeah, remember this all started, didn't it? We sit on my balcony in Canary Wharf on a Thursday night, wouldn't we, chatting rubbish. And I can't remember which one of us said it, but I think you said it, where it was like, definitely a podcast here. I'm sure somebody, I mean, obviously we weren't sure at that point, but I'm sure somebody would be interested. And been quite incredible to see the sort of the amount of people that have been interested, regular listeners we've got, the appetite for the different sort of things we do, the global reach. I think I was looking the other day and the amount of states in America that listen, Australia listen, lots and lots of different countries around. I think it was something like 42 countries or something we'd hit, which is incredible to say that they must all be listening in English, of course, because neither of us are doing it in any other language. Although yours is in Irish technically, so that gives us
through, doesn't it? Yeah, I think that's our second or third biggest market, so to speak, is Ireland. So yeah, people
brilliant.
must be liking the dulcet tones.
There you go. That's what it is. It's all the women there that are listening to your Irish brogue, Dave.
But yeah, when you look back on it, those Thursday nights where, certainly at the start it was us talking, and probably by the end it was the wine talking. And I'm sure at some stage somebody has wished that it was wine talking to them in this podcast rather than us two. But
that's a mistake we made.
We've covered some great topics in the 41 episodes. We've covered everything, haven't we? From sackings to planning for games, around the whole analysis side, pre-season, close season, transfers, everything. We've tried to give the viewers a real insight into what goes on behind the dressing room door.
Yeah, and I think that's been the key, hasn't it, for us? It's been that was the whole uniqueness of this, that we're both working within the game and we both got vast experience within the game. And it was really to share a little bit of those, inner workings of what a dressing room feels like and what that managers and coaches office feels like after games, preparing for transfer windows, working with sporting directors, working with owners, being in a poor run of form. Obviously, we've had to ask lots of other people about that one, but being in a good run of form, preparing for big games, So there's been so many. I don't quite think anyone's got our irony yet, have they? But I think there's been so many things that we're trying to at least just give people a little flavour of what it's like, and I think it's been really interesting for us, even to chat about some of the things. When you're chatting, sometimes you remember something else, or you remember a different experience that, often will pivot us away a little bit on a sort of side topic. But that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's that little chat. It's us having that conversational piece that hopefully we're trying to invite people almost into that conversation and learn a bit and hopefully enjoy some of the topics as well.
Yeah, I think when you look back at, say, some of the episodes and you think they're also the conversations that a lot of fans might have, So take, for example, when young players are coming through and the fans are clamouring for that young player to be given a start, give them a run of games. And, they often, if you don't give the player 15 or 20 games, how are you going to know whether they're good enough? And then not many people have computed that you're saying, well, give somebody half a season of unbridled, do what they want in a game to learn. But at the same time, you as a head coach, you're still expected to win those games. So, we see a lot of these conversations that we've had over the last year play out almost daily, aren't they? It's amazing how we see the same kind of topics come up again and again and again.
And I think that's what we've tried to do, haven't we? We've tried to create those topics, things that we think people would be interested in. And actually, how many times, like you said, have we done a pod on that very topic, and then 2 weeks later or a week later, a manager's story comes out and it's exactly what we spoke about. We've tried not to wait for the story and then jump on the back of that with an episode, have we? We've tried to just shape the episodes around things that happen all the time in football, and
Some people might,
often. Go
some
on.
people might call us football clairvoyance.
Well, are you suggesting the Pep run of form could be attributed to our podcast?
Well, we've had quite a few. Call them coincidences, call them predictions, but I remember when we were talking about how long will it be before a referee gets attacked, and literally within 48 hours there's an attack on a referee. Or again when we spoke about top managers having poor runs of form and how did they deal with it? Because there's always that question, isn't there? Would that top manager be able to cut it at League Two with an average squad instead of top players? But so many times we've talked about something and it's happened very soon afterwards.
What was the other one? I'm trying to think about the other one that we did, because we were really but it was a media one, wasn't it? Is when are we going to get that locker room mentality we spoke about? And all of a sudden, after that, and I've heard this actually working in the media currently, that they're talking about getting a player who's maybe been substituted at the end of a game, right at the end as they're walking off to be interviewed. And they're actively looking at some of those things that they're trying to do now. So again, these are the things we've spoke about that could happen. But of course, when you're in the game, you can see that, can't you? You can see how it's shaped and how it might move forward. So been absolutely fascinating. And then there was the interview series, wasn't there? I think we've tried to mix it up with sort of incorporating the whistleblower sort of Q&A things for people to be able to send in their things that they're interested in knowing, and that's been had a really good response. And of course, the interviews as well were fascinating. Starting with Timmy, I think it was Timmy Elsnick, our first one in the Euros.
The Euros. Yeah, that was
a bit of a scoop, that wasn't it?
That was a scoop, and it ran wild in the national media, or at least in the Derby Telegraph at that time. Where obviously
we got in the Sun. I think we got in the Sun. I'm sure we did.
Yeah, we hit the red tops. Yeah, by that stage, when we were trying to find new ways of opening out the pod, weren't we? We were trying to bring people maybe some different aspects and players that we worked with, and then some of the media that more that you've worked with or been around than I have. And then we've had, of course, we had Matt Smith on, who gave us a fascinating insight into his career and working with all those different managers at all those different clubs. And then we've had a look into the Women's Super League with Harvey Bussell, giving us a real interesting insight into the whole recruitment side of women's football and how that's developing. Those interviews were really, really interesting and brought us a slightly different audience as well for that period. I think we've seen with the different content we put out over the year, we've had different times where different kind of audiences have come to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what it does, doesn't it? Those interviews are it's for us to try and create a little bit of trust. And I think it's interesting when you're in the game and you're interviewing someone in the game, it feels like they're happy to open up a little bit more. They're less guarded. They understand that you've been through some of those moments. And I'm just thinking back to some of the, Henry talking about his Euros experience and how that worked. I remember him doing it. He was struggling to get some internet at the time, wasn't he? And some of those challenges around that. And then, people like Matt Smith that you mentioned that, how did he find working with us, so you had a sort of unique perspective in as much as we've worked with him. So, we have a little bit of extra insight, but also it worked both ways, didn't it? Because he worked with us. Thankfully, he got the memo at the start, which was be as complimentary as possible, because that will help our audience.
I also heavily edited that one, so took out all the bits where you said you were terrible.
Yeah,
not you, us.
And it was a challenge as well. Wasn't it? Because obviously we're not trained journalists, are we? So we were trying to do it in our own way. So fascinating insight, and fascinating into how every one of those people were different in the way that they did it. Gunny wanted to sort of tell those stories, didn't he? And he wanted
Great
to
storyteller.
share some brilliant stories about, someone slapping Lothar Matthäus around the face. It was absolutely brilliant. I think that was one of our biggest YouTube clips, wasn't it? The day he slapped Lothar Matthäus around the face. I can imagine people searching, thinking, "Oh my God, what's this clip? I'm going to click on this." Thankfully, well, there wasn't any footage, unfortunately, was there?
Heavy increase in listeners from Germany that week. Yeah, and Scotland. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
been good.
The great thing about the Gunny interview, of course, was that basically Gunny interviewed himself because he just ran with the story from one to the other. But great stories nonetheless about, being Alex Ferguson's babysitter all the way up to, the great European nights that they had with Norwich. But yeah, we've kind of had a great fun time doing it as well, haven't we? Trying to keep it as relevant as possible. One thing that's fascinated me throughout the whole year is as it's grown, that I've been on pitches where referees have said that they've listened to it, staff, players have said that they listen to it. So I've worked out the numbers. I think we've got 7 million listeners somewhere around the world. But yeah, it's always interesting when people come up from opponents, coaches or the staff, or even, as I said, the referees, and saying, "Yeah, we really like the pod. We enjoy the content and the different insights."
I had exactly the same thing. I went and did a referees day at Loughborough to help support them in something that they needed a manager to be part of. And I had about 2 referees. I don't know if they were buttering me up before because I had to go and give them a tough time in the dressing room or in the referees' room, and they said the same. "Oh, we really enjoy your podcast. It's really good." And it's been nice in a way that actually, I suppose when we first first did it, we thought maybe, okay, is it going to be fans? Is it going to be people that just love football that are going to listen? But actually, we've had a lot of people in the industry listen as well, haven't we? At different levels of the industry, and in completely different roles. And I think that's been just as important for us as the fans of different clubs. I mean, there might be some. It's interesting, really. I wonder how many fans are out there that will attribute, particularly like me, to a club and not want to listen, but actually not realise that a lot of the stuff is not generic. What I mean by that is just the insight from our experiences. Not, there's nothing personal with any of the clubs. We don't really discuss that type of thing, do we? What we discuss is our experiences and how it's sort of shaped where we are now. And hopefully, people have enjoyed that.
Yeah, and we've not tried to make it a kiss and tell. There are other podcasts out there that'll tell great sensationalist stories, whereas we'll probably keep it truer to ourselves in some ways, which is keep it relatively straight down the middle. But yeah, it is
saved a few people, that Dave. That saved a few people. I think the fact that we have that professional outlook. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the traits of it, isn't it? We're not trying to do anybody in over the course of the podcast, but where there are relevant stories, we will obviously explain who those people potentially were, or at least where the clubs are. Or certainly for the fans who listen, they'll probably have worked out what we're talking about anyway. But sometimes no names are mentioned. But we've enjoyed the different types of topics, and certainly I really enjoyed when we got the listener questions coming in, because for all the things that are in our heads, the whole audience we were looking to appeal to are those people who've got a real deep insight or interest in the game, who want to ask the questions on what exactly happens. So, for example, one of the great ones we did was about halftime strategies. And you see that play out every week, don't you? We suddenly see, for example, a team that's 2-0 down, something happens at halftime, they come back and win the second half. And you think, what's he said at halftime?
Yeah, that's the bit that we're trying to fill in the gaps, aren't we? Of people's because it always amazes me, actually, when you see some of these. For example, you see a lot of these sort of Netflix or Amazon Prime these documentaries, and people will go, "Oh, that's incredible." And it's funny, actually, because for us, it's like, that's just normal. That's what everybody does, But like seeing Pep doing a team talk or seeing Arteta doing a team talk it's a different way. It's maybe in some ways a little bit more theatrical because the cameras are there, but ultimately the essence of that team talk is exactly what happens in every dressing room up and down the country to different levels. And I think some of those questions have been really, really insightful. Some of them, of course, we couldn't answer. We had quite a lot of, Gary, why didn't you play so-and-so when you were at, Millwall or whatever, or what, and of course, we unfortunately for everyone, we haven't been able to answer every single request because we tried not to be sort of opinionated on things that has happened to us in clubs. That's not really our remit, is it? So. But yeah, I think that's been a really popular one. The whistleblowers. How many have we done? Have we done about 3 of those?
Have we done 4 whistleblowers?
4,
yeah,
okay.
That was good. Yeah, we did a Room 101. We're due another one of those to come up soon.
Yeah, I like that one.
Of course, everyone agreed that my 11 would heavily beat your 11 when we did our greatest games of all time.
Yeah,
Of course, we had the impact analysis series.
Yeah, that was good.
So again, looking at the future trends of the game and how that's going to impact football as we know it for the next number of years, because people are going to look at the game and observe the game and coach the game differently.
Yeah, that was a fascinating one. I really enjoyed that one, and the fact that actually we could show some of that on the YouTube episode, but we could actually show some of the way that they've not only developed their system but also how they present that system. Hopefully that was fascinating. That was a challenging one, wasn't it? Because it was kind of, what would this sound just on audio if someone's listening to driving in their car, but also could you watch it, because that's where you got the real bang for your buck, if you like. But yeah, Robert was brilliant in that one. So yeah, I'm sure plenty more to come. I mean, what have we've done? How many episodes? Well, we've been pretty consistent, haven't we? How many episodes have we done in total?
Yeah, we did 41, and in that time, we also had a spell in at Birmingham City at the end of last year. So that was putting us under. We had to take almost a little bit of an enforced break there while we concentrated on trying to finish that job. So yeah, that was probably the biggest break that we had, and then we had a couple of other periods, because we obviously started off a year ago just audio only. You couldn't see us.
That's right, in the studio, little studio in Canary Wharf,
wasn't it? Looked like.
Thankfully. Maybe that was more popular. Were we getting more listeners back then?
Actually, we were back then. Yeah, so maybe that's telling us something. Maybe people don't want to see us, but we started off in a studio down in Canary Wharf.
Yeah,
we had a go at doing one in a cafe. We've done them in hotels. We've done them now remotely for the last 6 months or so.
Remember the hotel one? Sorry, remember the hotel one where it was a massive room and we sat in a corner and a guy started doing a golf lesson and decided to stand about 2 meters away from us, and he had about 40 meters of space. That was a bit bizarre, wasn't it? We were learning lessons in those days. We had one in a rental property where the sun started shining halfway through the podcast in my eyes, right. I think it was. And of course, I'm sure that from a production perspective, Dave, you've learned an awful lot of lessons, but it's been fun.
Yeah, and I realise why podcasters who are professional bring crews of people and record in 8K rather than try and do it off 2 cameras that they had in their back pocket yesterday. But it's been great fun, and we thank everybody who supported us along the way.
Absolutely.
Not only the listeners, but the people who were kind enough to give their time to come and be interviewed, and thankfully didn't ask for any kind of money for that. So we're really appreciative of that part. And of course, all the feedback we've had likes and comments and subscribers on all different channels, which has made us feel a little bit enthused to keep going with it.
Absolutely, Dave. Absolutely. One last thing, mate. If you got one thing for Christmas, what would it be?
I'd probably have to say another microphone so I could hear myself twice.
Oh, that's so sad. That's so sad. I'm going for a job.
Oh, well,
good luck with that. Job. Yeah, there you go. We played a sack in season 1 again and see if it works.
Well, Santa has got the sack, hasn't he? So if anyone's got to have a job, it'll probably be Santa Claus. But yeah, it's been a great first year of the pod. 41 down. And of course, if any of the listeners or viewers out there have got any topics that they'd like to suggest, fire them over. If we want to do a full length on something that's burning inside your brain that you want to ask us, please fire them over.
Sounds good. Yeah, please do.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you on the next pod.
Cheers, guys.